Right. So we're gonna talk mental illness today because it's something that I don't think people really. It needs to be talked about more than it does, and I say this specifically because of some comments made by a particular sports columnist on a talk show that he hosts with an NFL Hall of Famer. So a particular Hall of Fame tight end and this columnist were having a discussion about Dak Prescott of the Dallas Cowboys. They were talking about Dak Prescott openly earlier last week, talking about his battle with depression. His brother early in the year commits suicide, and obviously this was I think February, late February was when his brother passed away, and then early March is obviously when we had the beginning of the shelter-in-place orders, the stay-at-home orders, whatever you want to call them, with the coronavirus pandemic. And Dak Prescott, being the person he is, carries a lot on his shoulders as this columnist put it, quote unquote, quarterback of America's team. But Dak Prescott is also a human being who lost a brother to mental illness. And he was like, yeah, I suffered from depression for a little while. I didn't have energy to get out of bed, to go to workouts. And, for all intents and purposes, until you learn otherwise, or unless you know otherwise, you do not have the right to say, no, he's overblowing this. He's not depressed. But that is exactly what this columnist did. For those of you who don't know what I'm talking, who aren't familiar with the people, it was Skip Bayless on his show Undisputed, talking about Dak Prescott's battle with mental illness. And that comment in particular, his reaction to Dak Prescott's comments, saying he doesn't have sympathy for the quarterback of America's team, that you can't show weakness, you can't show any signs of weakness. It's a lack. It's what a great leader does not have. And that particular comment did not sit well with me. It shouldn't sit well with you. And if it does, let me know why it sits well with you, because I'm going to tell you every reason that you're wrong. So I do have a personal tie to this, and I haven't really discussed this as openly as maybe I should, but this is something that I'm still trying to work through myself. So for context, I moved back to LA from Atlanta for a job, for my current job, about 2.5 years ago. So February of 2018. The few months before that, basically early December 2017, up until February 2018, I was living back home in Atlanta, seeing some of my close friends from either childhood or from high school, and spending as much time with them as I could. And one of my friends, he and I go back 20 plus years, probably the oldest friendship that I have, and one of the closer ones. It doesn't matter kind of how much we hung out or how much we talked at that point in time. The important thing is just we could pick up basically wherever. And so when I moved back out here, I got to say goodbye to him. I got to hang out with him a couple times. We saw Black Panther together, and we saw Star Wars together, both at this movie theater in Atlanta, which I don't even know how it existed, but they were super cheap tickets. The seats were the giant lounge chairs, and it was just all in all just a fantastic theater, especially to see two movies at basically midnight or close to midnight of release night. And the last thing he and I ever did was kind of hang out and just shoot the shit at my house, and talk about what the future looks like and what we're going to be doing in the next little while. And so end of February comes, and I moved back out to LA, where I spent 4 years for college to work at this job. And everything was fine. The job was good. I was in a good situation. And my friend and I texted constantly about football, about just life in general. Not every day, mind you, but every now and again we'd text because we'd have a lot of the same interests, and of course, our friendship goes back a long way. And on May 30th, 2018, I got a de facto suicide note from my oldest childhood friend that he had taken his own life. And while I kind of knew I was going through something at the time, what I hadn't realized until pretty recently, when I actually made it a point to go see someone about it, I had been suffering from a mild case of depression. And I know using the word mild in front of depression is not something that inherently is alarming. But the reality is that that's the part about mental illness that's so tough and that we need to be talking about. Because I had no idea that I was experiencing something that you could actually link to clinically diagnosable depression and generalized anxiety. For the last, I don't know, this subsided pretty recently, but for a while, I think it was basically towards the end of last year, up until, halfway through this year, I had been having a lot of nightmares about people that I either know or look up to in my life just dying. It could have been either someone in my family, one of my friends, a coworker, a celebrity that I look up to, or anyone you look up to, just dying. And we all know that death is inevitable, but that doesn't make the fear of it any less tangible. It doesn't make it any less real. And what I realized is that this was affecting me in a way that I hadn't identified. So what I'm trying to get at here is that when you have individuals like Skip Bayless who decide to use their platform to try to discuss something they have no insider knowledge about, they are perpetrating very harmful and very serious misconceptions that need to stop right now. I don't care what you think of a person as an athlete, as a leader, and as a member of society. When you go on national television and invalidate what this person is going through, you are engaging in gaslighting, number one, and you are engaging in a practice that makes it hard for people to understand that mental illness is just as serious as a physical illness, because it can have physical effects too. I wasn't sleeping well for months. I was having nightmares. Some days I couldn't get out of bed until after lying in bed for 3 hours. Some days barely, and literally just to go grocery shopping and cook, and that's it. It's very easy to dismiss fatigue or lack of interest or other things you'd associate with hangovers or just generally being tired. But what's crucial, and I want to make this point very, very clearly because I'm going to be talking about this a lot, not only on the channel, but just in everything that I do. You have to take it seriously. Something like this is not an isolated incident. This happens to every one of us. And so if you're going to get one thing out of me talking about this, my experience with mental illness, it's if there is a shred of doubt in your mind that something may be wrong, physically, mentally, or emotionally, or in any other way, go see someone about it. And if you think there is a shame in talking about mental illness, then pardon my French, but you need to wake the fuck up. Nobody, and I mean nobody, should have their own feelings and thoughts invalidated by others who claim they know better, whether they've been on the planet for longer or because they know how to write about sports and talk about sports. That is some bullshit that needs to stop. This is not something to joke about. This is a very serious topic, and it needs to be taken that seriously. And I don't mean to start a stream on a Monday with something as heavy as this, but this has been on my mind pretty much since I watched Skip Bayless invalidate someone going through a case of depression. So I want this to be not only a warning, but a lesson to all of you that it doesn't have to manifest itself, mental illness. It doesn't have to manifest itself in a way that you can tangibly feel. If you have thoughts or feelings or emotions that may lead you to believe that something is not right, go get it checked. Talk to a professional. Don't just talk to your family or your friends. Talk to someone whose job it is to learn, to listen, and to diagnose problems like this. Going to do that is actually what helped me get into a more consistent content creation mode. Because about a week and a half ago or so ago, I had this kind of epiphany that I'm in a position to do something and I have the drive to achieve whatever goals those are. Not because of an inherent skill, but because of a willingness to work and a willingness to pursue something. And it's not because I'm bored and I'm in quarantine. The only reason I was able to do it is because I had been seeing a mental health professional and taking antidepressants for something that is real. I guarantee you either know someone or you yourself have gone through something like this. Not the exact same scenario, but as far as the mental health implications, it's the exact same. So to kind of put a bow on all of this, there is no shame, there is no weakness in talking about how you're feeling. And if you think for men specifically that you shouldn't do it because it represents some form of weakness, then wake up. Start taking this seriously so the rest of us can get on with our lives and not be dragged down by people who insist that mental illness isn't a real thing and that you don't have sympathy for them.